How's it going, everybody? Special version of that LSU show, our new event show here on LSUODYSSEY.com, where we've been doing this for years. We've been doing this for years, but we never really had a name for it. Well, now we've named it. We were watching some That 70s show, and we were like, you know, it's about the 70s, so that works. This is about LSU. It works. So that LSU show where we bring, players like we had Makai Wingo on just this last few days, you know, try and bring coaches, and, a lot of different voices within the LSU community, whether that's media, whether that's families of the players. And then, of course, you know, very interesting. Tonight we have a very special guest, Jonathan Pixley of Matchpoint Connection joining us. Awesome, awesome company that are really starting to pave the way for NIL with LSU. They're involved in just about every single LSU deal, it seems, and it's very interesting to see how this thing has built itself over the past little while. How this thing continues to build, continues to percolate with NIL, and how it continues to change. I mean, there's been a lot of weird changes in NIL. There's been a lot of changes because of NIL that have made things, either good, bad, all the above. It's been very interesting time in college football, and you know, it's going to be a very interesting conversation once he hops on here, because we've seen the whole future landscape of college football possibly change because of NIL. And so getting someone with Jonathan's expertise, his knowledge on this show, huge for us. And without further ado, Jonathan, can you hear me all right?
I can. Y'all can hear me?
Absolutely, sir. How you doing?
Doing great. How about you guys?
Doing fantastic, sir. With Matchpoint Connection, I mean, I swear, Jonathan, I look at like almost every deal connected to LSU. Almost every deal you guys are connected with. You guys are brokering the algorithm with this app. It's been an algorithm I've actually seen NIL groups try and copy,
Yeah.
try and steal some of these ideas. What was the original genesis for Matchpoint, and where did that come from?
So, prior to July 1 of 21, we knew NIL was coming. And so that was the premise of Matchpoint. That's what we were basing it on. But pretty quickly after, we recognized, how limiting that was. So it limits you to 460,000 college athletes. So ultimately now we're involving all social media influencers at this point. But the idea was to create the tech that would most efficiently and easily connect local, regional, national businesses to student athletes all across the country. I mean, yes, we're LSU heavy, being here in Baton Rouge, but we're already in 49 states as well. So it's a national push for sure.
That's something I did not know, and that's why I love getting you on here, is because I was thinking so much of LSU rooted, but you guys have more than expanded. You guys are more than ready for this. But I mean, for those watching this who may not understand what Matchpoint is, Jonathan, I thank you so much for being on here. And could you take the viewers through what Matchpoint is from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we actually have three different models that we use in our business at this point. The first one is where we are basically like a dating app, and we connect the two sides. So if you were to register on our app, you would either register as a brand, as a business, right, or you would register as a talent if you were an influencer. Either way, it's free to download, free to onboard. There's no monthly fees, none of that. The only time Matchpoint makes a dime is at the end of a completed partnership where the brand has gotten I guess the media, the advertising that they wanted, and then the talent will have gotten paid for that. So that's the only time we would make a dime, is at the very end of that. So we're pretty proud of that, first of all. Also, we're one of the only, and I think at this point, it's either one of two or one of one. I got to go back and look. Two-way marketplaces in the entire country, where not only can businesses reach out to talent, which is how most of the platforms are set up, but also the student athletes or the influencers can reach out and pitch the businesses. So if you were to create a profile on our app, you would put all the necessary specs in to feed into our algorithm, our 4-factor algorithm, so that it can create that suggested feed list for you, so that you can then see which businesses, if you're a student athlete, for example, which businesses you would best be suited to partner with, and vice versa for a business to influencer. It even has percentages next to it, the whole thing. Goes up to 50 on your suggested feed list. And if you don't see, let's say you're a student athlete at a university and you don't see a brand that you want to work with on your suggested feed list, you just got to type them into our search function. And if they're on the app, then you can find them. And we're approaching 800 brands on the app as of right now. And we didn't launch till, July 1 of 21. So we feel pretty good about that number for sure. Once that happens, once you've created your profile, then you can send out pitches to whoever's on the app. And, we have some educational pieces from a standpoint of like with brands, kind of helps you, guide you as to what you should pay the athletes based on, the basic standards in the social media world and in the influencer world. And so that's the organic model. Those are the deals we really love because they're going on and we don't even know they're going on. Right. Yeah. The second, well, let me complete that, because I think there's a little more to it actually. Once, let's say, and we'll use a super simple example. Okay. So once a student athlete reaches out, let's say they find a restaurant that they want to do business with. They pitch the restaurant through the app. By the way, all communication can be done on the app, every bit of it. Okay. So you send the communication. Hey, look, I love your food. I want to help you with brand awareness. I want to do 2 social media posts for you for $200, whatever it is. All right. Send that offer. That restaurant, obviously they're on the app, so they receive a push and email notification letting them know that they have an offer waiting for them. They open it up, and then once they open it up, they can either accept it, they can reject it, or they can continue negotiating through our chat function. Maybe they don't want social media. Maybe they want an on-site autograph session. Maybe whatever it is. Once the deliverable has been agreed upon and the dollar amount has been agreed upon, okay, and the business then accepts the offer, the money that has been agreed to be paid comes to us at Matchpoint. We hang on to it in escrow until the deliverables have been completed. So it protects both sides, right? And then once it's been completed, it's sent back to the business for review. And at that point, they, once it's been okayed, then the money is released to the athletes. Matchpoint currently makes 9% on those deals. So you see, 20, 25, 30%. Is what most marketing firms are charging. We're charging 9. We charge 9 from the athletes, 9 from the businesses. So, in that $200 example, the athlete would make 182 and the business is going to get charged 218. So, super simple. And we love to be really transparent about it because we're really proud about that low figure because of the masses of deals that we're trying to promote here, obviously.
I can verify that. Some of the groups that have approached me, it's the 30s. It's the high 20s.
Yeah. And especially, I've talked to a few different universities early on, and they were like, well, why would we go with you guys if you're charging our athletes when this group isn't charging our athletes? I was like, right. But do you know what they're charging the brands? They're charging the brands 30%. Exactly. So that's why no brands want to get on their app, and your athletes have nobody to do any deals with, Exactly. Right. So second model that we have is what we call our premium model, where we can act as basically a marketing firm. And so we've had businesses come to us and say, here's our budget. Here's what we want to spend. Here's who we want to work with. We had a local business a couple months ago say, I want to work with as many LSU teams as possible. Over 5 teams, 61 athletes were involved in this one deal with this one company. And we did everything from going to find the athletes, onboarding them, sending the offer, making sure the deliverables were, vetted and then also accomplished, and then make sure that the athletes get paid as well. So if we have our hand on all of it, then obviously we're going to take a larger percentage out of that, right? And then the last one is we manage collectives as well. So, and we have 2 different models really that we can manage collectives through. One of them is what I just told you, right, where we have our hands on all of it, or we can be the Venmo for collectives. We can be the payment processor. Ultimately, you can just run all of your deals through our app. And what it does for the people running the collective, who typically form an LLC or a 501c3 or whatever it is, it keeps up with all of the documentation. So everything that I have told you about already involves, once the deals are complete, okay, if that athlete or influencer, whoever, reaches that $600 threshold that requires a 1099, we generate the 1099s for the athletes. We generate the W-9s for the businesses. Not to mention, every single step of the partnership is documented and time-stamped, so it could act as the legal contract if everything can get audited. And look, if you want to go a step further and you're a business and you want a specific contract, all you got to do is attach it in our chat function to the influencer that you want to do the deal with. So again, all of that stuff, all in-house, all in one place.
Jonathan, this is brilliant, because here's, I mean, like July 1st, 2021, we're not even a year into this. And I mean, sorry, not even 2 years into this, just past a year into this. And I mean, how were you guys able to get so prepared for this? How were you guys able to be this creative to figure out, like, we could do an NIL social media kind of thing? When did that come about?
We have an amazing team, and I am extremely fortunate to be a part of it. While I am heavily involved in the NIL space, obviously, I mean, we just have an incredible team. Our CEO, Brian Oliver, was super successful in his previous industry, and it was a mass production industry in the healthcare business. And so he has experience with this type of deal. Mackenzie Landry is our chief of marketing, and she is incredible. I mean, she was a killer in the real estate business and that marketing side of things. And all she's done is take that approach and put it into this industry now. And then Zach Oliver is our CFO. It's Brian's brother. And Zach is a Northwestern grad out of Chicago, where he played quarterback, and is a brilliant young guy who handles all the numbers for us, but also has his hands on a lot of different stuff. I mean, he's pretty incredible at all this, and he's got a great mind for the NIL space. And then Crystal Faircloth, who honestly is probably the first super successful social media influencer in Louisiana, where we are based. She was a mom blogger, and I mean, she generates and has generated a 6-figure income doing that for a long time now. And she decided, look, I want to come help teach these athletes and these influencers how to do what I did. So it's an incredible team. And, I'm just kind of here doing the podcasts and spewing about it, but these guys, they're amazing.
I mean, you guys really, was LSU in like Louisiana your guys' first like priority? Like that's where we're going to go first, try and make that, establish that connection with LSU athletics?
Sure, because it's the low-hanging fruit, right? And it's where we have connections for sure. Plus, it doesn't hurt that you're talking about, one of the top 5 athletic programs in the country. And if you have a relationship there and you prove that you can be successful in that space, well, then others like it will come. And that's kind of been what's happened so far.
I mean, absolutely. Wasn't Derek Stingley one of the first deals?
Yeah, he was the first.
He was the first.
Yeah, in July 1. And in fact, I was a high school basketball coach for a long time, and Derek attended the high school that I coached at. And so it's just a super small world. And And so he did the very first deal, 1201 on July 1 of 21. Walk-ons here in town obviously did a promotion with him. It was really, really cool. And he was first.
I remember that was crazy when it became legal, because we even did a deal on July 1st. It was for a lot smaller income, a lot smaller payment than what you guys were pushing out. I'll tell you that much. And it was just with one different player, but it was cool to like be part of that process. But still, I mean, what kind of possibilities for you guys did that Stingley deal open?
Well, the irony in that is it's the smallest percentage of deals done is with
Yeah.
somebody like that, right? Now it's the biggest dollar figure, and that's great. But I mean, the Bryce Youngs of the world and the Livy Dunns of the world who's here in our backyard, right? All those are the exceptions really to all the rules from a dollar amount when you're dealing with it. What it did do for us was it obviously gave us a splash. Okay, Derek Stingley's the best defensive back in the country at the time, and he's the number 3 pick in the draft last year. So that did give us instant notoriety. But to me, what it did was it just opened the floodgates for everybody who thought that they had a chance to be successful in NIL. They at least knew that we were an option, especially in Baton Rouge, for sure.
I mean, yeah, it's so open with NIL right now. I mean, it feels like, Jonathan, it's almost like, the most creative mind in this field is going to win. The company that's able to think outside the box, monetize things we don't usually think about making money off of. How important is it for Matchpoint to do these community events alongside, the big time deals too?
Oh, it's important. I mean, when we did the food bank deal with the entire LSU football team, right? I mean, that's a big deal. It was a really cool thing, first of all, because all those guys came out and they worked. It was not, what most people have in mind is, oh, they're just showing up at the food bank getting a check. Nuh-uh. These dudes got out there and they worked. Brian Kelly was there when it happened. I mean, he showed up. He was there. The coaching staff was there. So it is very real. And I think that it's very important to these head coaches right now that they have some input into it, that they have their thumb down on it to a degree, because they want to make sure it's being done right, for 2 reasons, really. Number one, they want to make sure their guys are compliant, right? That they're eligible to play. And number 2, they want to make sure that their kids are benefiting from this, because not only do they, you can use it as a recruiting tool, which, look, you and I know, okay, legally it can't be used to recruit. Okay. But there's so many different ways to use it as a recruiting tool. I mean, think about it. When's the first time that Nick Saban mentioned NIL? I mean, people think back and they're like, oh, is this? No, it was at a press conference before the season started 2 seasons ago. And he didn't even mention Bryce Young's name. He said, yeah, our quarterback's going to make like $1 million this year. Right. In passing, like it was in passing. He knew exactly what he was doing. Right. And so I think that, the coaches, they want to make sure their kids are getting deals for that, but they also want to make sure that their kids are benefiting from it. I mean, because they care about the kids and they want to make sure that that they're taken care of.
Of course. I mean, and that's something that's really interesting to me, seeing these sides of it, because everybody has these broad misconceptions about NIL. And what do you think is some of the weirdest and maybe most damaging misconceptions about NIL that have maybe perhaps hurt the process?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is the perception of collectives, right, and what they're really doing. We've talked to a lot of different people in the field, obviously, and on our podcast, Rosters to Riches with Matt Moscona, we actually had Christy Dosh on a couple of weeks ago, and she's about as big of an expert in the field as you can get. And she thinks that probably 90 to 95% of collectives are being run the right way, which I thought was a high number, but she's dug into these things, right? The problem is that 5 to 10% that aren't being run the right way are the ones that are going to be focused on. And that's what it's like any industry, right? I mean, it's the smaller percentage that screws it up for everybody else. I do think, however, initially when the idea of collectives came out, I was concerned about it. Because I was like, okay, well, this is just going to take the money that's been being paid under the table, right, and put it on top of the table. but it can be done very legally, very easily. And so there's really no reason. Like, to me, if you get caught cheating in today's deal, you are a fool who is not
Yeah,
keeping track of what you need to keep track of. Because as long as there are deliverables attached, and the payment process and everything is documented, and contracts are taken care of, and the kids end up being compliant and eligible at the end of the day, it's all legal. It's all
exactly.
legal now.
That's the thing, is it's just very interesting to me, this whole the collectives and all the talk. There's been a lot of like fear mongering with it, but really for me, I've seen NIL change lives. I mean, how have you seen NIL change lives, not just for student athletes, but their families as well?
Well, I mean, obviously, the young men and young women that come from less fortunate situations, who are able to benefit from this, it obviously affects them very positively. But one thing that I think often kind of gets pushed to the wayside is, and it's really two different angles. Number one, let's take the star athletes. Okay, take them and talk about the Bryce Youngs and the Derek Stingleys and whoever. NIL can be a training ground for how to deal with the endorsements that are going to come your way once you do turn pro, right? I mean, there's no question about that. They can learn how to deal with brands. Bryce Young has a podcast, right? I mean, they're doing all these different things. The other thing is, since we know that, it's about 98% that are not going to turn pro, if not a little bit more than that, actually. Because of that, NIL gives another training ground for athletes to develop relationships with brands that they may work with or for down the road after they graduate. Not to mention, and we see this with the female side a lot, there are athletes that will want to be influencers once they're done with their playing career, and make that their passion and their basically their source of income. So I think it does a lot of things to change lives, not necessarily just based on money.
Absolutely. It's been something that I've seen, where it affects, the mentality of the player, how they see themselves sometimes. It's been very interesting when I've seen like a walk-on guy or someone who's not really given much of a chance on the field get these NIL deals. I've seen some of these players actually rise on the field because of these things. It's very interesting. What, Jonathan, for you personally, what's been like the most rewarding moment for you with this whole Matchpoint ride?
Hmm. Um, I probably can't pinpoint a moment, but I would say it's the day to day of working with my team. Our team, like I told you, it's an amazing group. It's a very diverse group. We have a lot to learn from each other for sure. And the good thing is, you're in a room like on our exec team. Okay, you're in a room full of alphas, but you're in a room full of alphas who are willing to listen to other alphas. And
Key.
I think that's rare, right? I think our communication is good. I mean, every group's gonna have bumps in the road, but we have developed a family-like atmosphere where, as opposed to employees maybe going at each other a little bit, it's brothers and sisters going at each other a little bit, and that's okay. And that's the worst of it, right? The best of it is all coming together and seeing things come to fruition for these student athletes. Because at the end of the day, who are we trying to help? We're trying to help the student athletes or the influencers, and we're trying to help the businesses gain some brand awareness and some return on investment as well. So as long as we feel like we're doing everything we can to be a positive part of that, then we're doing what we're supposed to do.
Jonathan, you guys are also opening up the high school world. You guys are also working with recruits like Shelton Sampson Jr. How has the legalized, NIL for high school recruits kind of changed the game for you guys?
At this point, it really hadn't, and I think it's overrated right now. I'm not saying that at some point it won't become bigger. I think it will.
Yeah.
I'll be completely honest with you. I was not a fan of it when it came out. I did not think it was going to be a good thing.
I can see why.
Yeah, I mean, especially being a former coach and just thinking about what the dynamics of the locker room look like and this and that. But look, the reality is, I think it falls in one of two boats, right? One, you have the Shelton Sampsons or the Arch Mannings or the Quinn Ewers before he left or whoever, right? Those guys.
Yeah.
So those are the superstars who are going to make big, big money. Or you have the backup right tackle on a high school football team whose uncle owns a restaurant, who throws him a bone and says, look, I'm gonna pay you $100 to post about us, just because he wants to help somebody out. There may be a third one coming. I haven't seen it yet, but I think that there's the possibility and the potential for teams, right, to do deals with local businesses. I just keep envisioning, the movie Friday Night Lights,
Yes.
right, where you have that kind of podunk Texas town that really football is the only thing going on in it, and so they shut down the businesses on Friday nights and whatnot. So I could see that happening as well. But at this point, it really hadn't changed the game for us. We are involved with it because it is legal in Louisiana, obviously, and 16 other states right now, I believe. But nonetheless, I'm still a little leery about it because, look, it's the easiest way, to get, I guess, accused of recruiting an athlete, right? Especially if that kid goes to your hometown school. So I think you just got to be really careful and walk a line with that.
Absolutely. I that's another thing that just makes me wonder, with the future of NIL, like, all this stuff with recruiting, it's very interesting. Of course, we saw Jimbo Fisher, have the #1 recruiting class of all time, #1 ranked, throwing all this money around, and they're not even going to go to a bowl game. I mean, who would have believed that? You've got all these storylines with players making millions here and there. Livy Dunn killing it as not just an influencer, of course, but also making some serious income with what she's doing. Out of all of these things, Jonathan, where are we going in the future of NIL? Where are we going? Take us into the future, Jonathan.
That's the $100 million question, right? Let's go back real quick and let's talk about Texas A&M. I think the interesting part about that is the way I viewed it as an outsider looking in to see what Coach Fisher was doing with that is it kind of looks like he played the long game a little bit with it because he has a lot of freshmen on his roster. But that can bite you in the butt as well, because if you're not successful, then the transfer portal is there, which, by the way, is my least favorite thing about college sports. And it's there. And so guys can up and leave if the situation is not good. Yeah. But to Coach Fisher's credit, he's looking at everybody going, okay, if you don't like what I'm doing, pay me $85 million and I will walk away right now. Right. I mean, it's because his buyout is so big. I think he felt like he had the ability to play the long game. And I may be completely wrong about that. I'm speculating on it just based on what I see with the roster.
I agree with you.
Yeah. The Livy Dunn situation that just came out, where you have, the coach's name at Stanford eludes me right now, but she comes out and she's questioning, I guess the motives or the direction that Livy and other female athletes are heading. Look, our view on it is real simple. Okay. Take Livy Dunn and anybody who's in her, nobody else is in her boat, but anybody else who is benefiting from NIL, kudos to them, right? As long as they're not promoting things that are illegal, right? That are, I don't even know another word to use for it, but as long as that's not happening, kudos to them. I understand where some of these coaches are coming from. It's, sexualizing that side of it, and it's pushing female athletics back. And I think it's bringing female athletics to the forefront. I think all it's doing is making more people aware that female athletes are making money with NIL and they exist. And that NIL money exists because they are athletes, right? So that's where I am. And plus, look, we live in a capitalist society. So who's to say she can't do that, right? Who's to say she can't benefit off of that? So anyhow, where are we heading? Again, the $100 million question. Do we get to federal legislation, right? Is there a chance? Do student athletes become employees of the school? Does the National Labor Relations Board push that through where now they can not only they're viewed as employees, which means they can unionize, which means they can demand, retirement, more insurance, revenue sharing. So these big TV deals, is it something that's going to be paid directly to athletes? Is that then viewed as pay for play? Does the NCAA become obsolete because 40 to 60 of the top programs, football programs in the country say, we don't need you because all you're involved with is the bowl system and you make 92% of your money off of March Madness anyhow. So we're out and we can run our own thing. My favorite part about that, by the way, is when people say, oh, well, who's going to run it? Really? You think some of these big business moguls wouldn't, Jeff Bezos or Zuckerberg or something like that, wouldn't come in and get involved, knowing the amount of money that's involved in college football? Are you kidding me?
Of course.
Not
They'd
to
be
mention
lining up.
Oh, without question. Shoot, Elon Musk might try to sell Twitter so that he can then, go run college football. Who knows? Anyhow, that's probably too soon, nonetheless. But I think that
I love it.
There are endless possibilities here. I do believe this, and there's a lot of people who disagree with me. I do believe the federal government has to get involved. If there ever is going to be any type of significant regulation where there's a set of rules across the board that everybody has to follow, they're going to have to get involved. The problem is when they do, who needs the NCAA? The football doesn't, right? And so therein lies the issue. Now, the irony in all of that is, what's the one rule that can kind of keep college sports as college sports is the one rule that's been the most complained about ever since its inception, and that's Title IX. So it's the one thing that might end up saving college sports, because if you're saying, okay, revenue sharing, all right, well, football team makes the most money, so we got to give them more than everybody else. Well, Title IX is there to combat things like that. Okay. And I just think there's an endless amount of possibilities. The key for people, third-party companies like us, the key for athletes who are involved in it right now, the key for universities, in my opinion, is to navigate it daily and weekly. Don't try to project too much, right? The one thing that we have done, though, I believe, is we have set our business up and our model up in a manner where if and when those changes do come, because they will at some point, we will either not have to pivot or barely have to pivot. And I think that's the key.
Adaptivity. And you guys have adapted completely to NIL. I mean, you guys, I'm just going to say it, Jonathan, you guys are leading the way in NIL. Really, you're out in front here. LSU, I think it's got to be 9 out of 10 deals, and you guys are really brokering some really big time moves here, some big time deals with some of these athletes, and really changing lives and doing some great work. Matchpoint connection, NIL titans of the NIL universe, of the NIL landscape. We have no way to know where we're going around this wild bend in college football, but Matchpoint connection will be there leading the way. I can tell you that. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us, and have a good rest of your night.